The man who runs the NBA just made a decision about Caitlin Clark that has officially changed women's basketball forever, and almost nobody saw it coming. Before I tell you what actually happened, you need to understand something. For the last 2 years, every single move in the WNBA has been quietly pointing toward one moment. And that moment just arrived. The commissioner of the NBA didn't just step into the WNBA's business. He took control of the entire direction of the league, and the decision he just made is going to decide the future of every player, every team, and every dollar in women's basketball. Stay with me, because what I'm about to break down is bigger than one player, bigger than one season, and honestly, bigger than most people realize. By the end of this video, you're going to see the WNBA completely differently. If you're new here, take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button right now. It's free, it takes less than a second, and it makes sure you never miss another breakdown like this one. And if you've already subscribed, thank you. You're the reason this channel keeps growing. Now let's get into it. The decision that shook the league. Let me start with the moment that changed everything. It wasn't a buzzer beater. It wasn't a trade. It was a decision made in a boardroom by a man who doesn't even coach a WNBA team. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, looked at the WNBA and decided that the old way of doing things was over. For years, the WNBA operated like a smaller, quieter cousin of the NBA. It grew slowly. It was careful. It was cautious. And then Caitlin Clark happened, and everything changed overnight. Here's the thing you need to understand. When Clark walked onto a professional court for the first time, she didn't just bring talent. She brought an audience. She brought attention that the WNBA had never seen before. And suddenly, the league had a choice to make. Do they keep playing it safe, or do they go all in? Adam Silver made that choice for them. He decided that the WNBA was no longer going to be treated as a side project. He decided it was going to be treated as a major part of the NBA's future. And that one decision has completely restructured how the league operates, how it's marketed, how it's broadcast, and even how the game is played. But here's the part that most people don't realize. This wasn't a quick decision. It was years in the making, and the ripple effects are only just beginning. Stay with me, because the next part is where things get really interesting. Who is Adam Silver, really? Before we go any further, let's talk about the man behind all of this. Adam Silver has been the commissioner of the NBA since 2014. He's known around the league as a businessman first and a basketball fan second. He's the guy who modernized the NBA, who pushed for faster, higher-scoring games, who understood that entertainment drives the sport just as much as competition does. And for a long time, the WNBA was not really on his radar in a serious way. That changed when the numbers started to speak for themselves. When Caitlin Clark entered the league, she didn't just break records on the court, she broke records everywhere else too. Her jersey became one of the best-selling basketball jerseys in the entire world. And I'll get to those numbers in a minute because they're genuinely unbelievable. But the point is this: Silver saw the data. He saw the viewership, he saw the ticket sales, and he made a calculation that changed the course of the league forever. Here's what I want you to remember. Adam Silver doesn't make emotional decisions. He makes business decisions. And every single move he's made around the WNBA in the last 2 years has been a business decision. That's the lens you need to understand everything else in this video. Because once you see it that way, every move makes perfect sense. And the biggest move of all came in the form of a media deal that nobody could have predicted just a few years ago. The media deal that changed everything. This is where the money story really begins. In 2024, the WNBA announced a new media rights agreement with 3 of the biggest media companies in the world: Disney, NBC Universal, and Amazon. When it was first announced, the deal was reported to be worth about $2.2 billion over 11 years, which works out to roughly $200 million a year. And then, when everything was finalized, the total value climbed even higher to more than $3 billion. Let me put that in perspective for you. Before this deal, the WNBA's media rights were worth a fraction of that. This new package represented roughly a 6 times jump in value. 6 times in one negotiation. And it wasn't just about the money. It was about the schedule. Under the new deal, the league locked in more national television games than it had ever had before, with reports showing around 216 national games scheduled in a single season. That's a completely different league than the one that existed just a couple of years ago. Now, here's what's really important to understand about this deal. The WNBA didn't negotiate this on its own. This was part of a much bigger picture. The NBA was negotiating its own massive media rights package at the same time, and the WNBA's deal was tied into that broader negotiation. That means the NBA used the WNBA's growth, and specifically the Caitlin Clark effect, as leverage to get more money for both leagues. The WNBA wasn't just a small add-on anymore. It was a key part of the entire media strategy. And that's when the power dynamic shifted. For years, the WNBA was seen as a league that needed help to survive. Now it's being treated as a growth engine. And that shift has consequences. Higher production quality, more national games, more attention on every single player. But it also means more pressure. Every game, every play, every controversy is now being watched through the lens of a multi-billion-dollar investment, and not everyone is comfortable with that. But before I tell you about the controversy, let me show you how this money is actually being spent, because that's where the next bombshell comes in. And trust me, this one affects every single player in the league. The charter flight revolution. For years, one of the biggest complaints in the WNBA was travel. WNBA players were flying commercial. That means standing in regular airport security lines, squeezing into middle seats, dealing with delays, and showing up to games exhausted. It was a constant battle. And for years, the league's answer was always the same. We can't afford charter flights for everyone. Then everything changed. In 2024, the league announced a full-time charter flight program for all teams. And here's the number that should shock you. The charter program was reported to cost around $25 million a year. $25 million. For a league that had spent years saying it couldn't afford basic travel upgrades, this was a massive sudden investment. Now, why the sudden change? The official reason was player health and safety, and that's true. The players absolutely deserved better, but there was more to it than that. When Caitlin Clark started drawing enormous crowds everywhere she went, the security situation around the league changed completely. The league realized that its biggest star needed protection that commercial travel simply couldn't provide. So they made the call to go all in on private travel. This was a huge win for the players. No more middle seats, no more security lines. Private terminals, direct to the bus, straight to the game. It's the kind of treatment that NBA players have had for years, and finally, WNBA players got it too. But here's the catch. Not every team was ready for this. Smaller market teams suddenly had to deal with a massive increase in their operating costs overnight. Some teams were prepared, some weren't. And that created real tension behind the scenes. Because the league made a statement with this decision. We are no longer a second-tier league. We are going to look the part, even if it costs money we haven't earned yet. That's a bold strategy. And it's a risky one. But it tells you something important about where this league is headed. And the next chapter of this story is even bigger. Because the league isn't just upgrading its travel. It's expanding. Fast. The expansion race. Here's where things get really wild. The WNBA is growing at a pace that nobody could have predicted. And I'm not talking about gradual growth. I'm talking about a full-on expansion race. It started with the Golden State Valkyries, who began play in 2025. That was the first new team in years, and it was a huge deal. But it was just the beginning. In 2026, 2 more teams joined the league, the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire. Toronto is a massive market, and it marked the league's first expansion into Canada. Portland brought back a name from the league's past, and both teams started building their rosters through an expansion draft in 2026. But here's the part that really shows you how aggressive this growth is. The league has already announced 3 more teams. Cleveland is set to begin play in 2028, Detroit in 2029, and Philadelphia in 2030. That brings the league to 18 teams total. 18. And the league is talking about even more beyond that. Now let's talk about why this matters. Expansion means more games, more markets, more jerseys, more revenue. It means the league is cashing in on the Clark era while the moment is hot. And from a business perspective, it makes perfect sense. But it also creates real problems for the players who are already in the league. Here's the thing, nobody's talking about enough. Every time a new team joins, there's an expansion draft, and that means existing players can be taken from their teams. Roster spots get squeezed. The competitive balance of the league gets shaken up. Veterans who have built their careers in one city suddenly have to worry about being selected by a brand new team. It's a lot of uncertainty, all at once. And there's a bigger question underneath all of this. Is the league growing too fast? Some people in the basketball world are worried that adding this many teams this quickly will dilute the talent pool. They're worried that the quality of the game will suffer. But the league's answer is clear. We're not slowing down. We're going to ride this wave as far as it goes. And that brings us to the money. Because all of this expansion, all of this growth, it all comes back to one thing: the players and what they're going to get paid. And that's where the next bombshell drops: the new collective bargaining agreement. This is the part that should get every WNBA fan excited, because for the first time in the history of the league, the money is actually getting real. Let me break down the numbers for you. In 2025, the salary cap in the WNBA was around $1.5 million per team. That's shockingly low for a professional league. Players were making a fraction of what their talent deserved, and that was one of the biggest complaints in the sport for years. Then the players did something bold. They opted out of the collective bargaining agreement. And after months of negotiations, the league and the players' union reached a historic new deal. Here's what it looks like. The salary cap jumps to around $7 million per team in 2026. $7 million. That's a massive increase from $1.5 million in just one season. And it's expected to keep growing to more than $11 million by 2032. And it's not just the cap. The top players are going to see their salaries explode too. Under the new deal, a maximum contract player will earn around $1.4 million in 2026, and that number is expected to grow to more than $2.4 million by 2032. For a league where players were once making barely enough to live on, this is a complete transformation. Now, here's what I want you to really understand about this. This new deal doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because of the growth we just talked about, the media deal, the expansion, the charter flights, all of it. The revenue is coming in, and finally, the players are getting a real share of it. But here's the tension. The league is changing faster than the players' union can keep up with. Every new deal, every new team, every new revenue stream, it all has to be negotiated and renegotiated. And the players who are in the league right now are caught in the middle of this massive transition. They're the ones who built this league, and now they're watching it explode in value, sometimes faster than they can benefit from it. That's a real frustration, but it's also an incredible opportunity, because the players who are entering the league right now are stepping into a completely different financial reality than the players who came before them. And that's exactly what the next generation of athletes has been waiting for. But before I get to the future, let's talk about the player who made all of this possible, because the numbers around Caitlin Clark are genuinely hard to believe. The Clark effect. Numbers that don't lie. Let me just give you the raw numbers because they speak for themselves. In 2025, the Wnba set an all-time attendance record. More than 3 million fans attended games across the season, a 34% increase from the year before. The average attendance was nearly 11,000 fans per game. That's the highest average in the history of the league, breaking a record that had stood since 1998. And it's not just attendance. The television numbers are just as crazy. In 2025, WNBA games on ESPN networks averaged 1.3 million viewers. The postseason averaged 1.2 million viewers, up 5% from the year before. And individual games featuring Caitlin Clark have drawn some of the biggest audiences in league history. One game between the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream averaged 2.6 million viewers, making it the most watched WNBA game ever at the time. And at its peak, that game drew more than 3 million viewers at once. Let me put that in perspective. 3 million people watching a WNBA regular season game. That's a number that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago, and it's happening because of one player. Now let's talk about the merchandise, because this is where the Clark effect gets really wild. When Caitlin Clark was drafted, her jersey became the top-selling draft night jersey in the history of the company that sells the league's merchandise. Not just in the WNBA. In the history of the platform, across all sports. And in 2024, her jersey was the second best-selling basketball jersey in the entire world, across both the WNBA and the NBA. The only player who sold more was one of the greatest players in NBA history. Her jersey sales even topped some of the biggest stars in the NBA. And here's a number that really shows you how dominant she is. Recent reports show that Clark and one other player account for more than 70% of all WNBA jersey sales. 70%. Between two players. That's not just a star, that's an industry. So now you understand why the league made the decisions it made. When you have a player who draws 3 million viewers, sells out arenas, and dominates merchandise sales, you protect that player. You build the league around that player. And that's exactly what's happening. But here's the question that's causing so much tension. How far is too far? The rookie records. Before we get into the controversy, let's take a moment to appreciate what Caitlin Clark actually did on the court, because the records she set in her rookie season are the kind that people will be talking about for decades. In her first season, Clark scored 769 points, the most ever scored by a rookie in WNBA history. She made 122 three-pointers, the most ever by a rookie. She became the fastest player in league history to reach 100 three-pointers, doing it in just 34 games. She set the rookie record for assists in an all-star game, and she recorded a triple-double in her rookie season, a stat line of 19 points, 13 assists, and 12 rebounds in a single game. Now, I want you to think about what those records mean. This is a player who came into the league as a rookie and immediately rewrote the record books. She didn't need time to adjust. She didn't need a learning curve. She came in and changed the game from day one. And that's exactly why the league made the decisions it made. When you have a player like this, you don't just let her play. You build everything around her. You protect her. You promote her. You make sure she's on every screen, in every market, in every highlight. But here's where things get complicated. Because protecting a player like this doesn't just affect the player. It affects every other player in the league. And that's where the controversy begins. The officiating debate now. Let's talk about the most controversial part of this whole story. Because this is where the league's decisions have created real division. Here's what happened. As Clark's fame grew, so did the physicality against her on the court. She was getting knocked down. She was getting hit hard, and fans started noticing that the fouls against her weren't always being called. The debate exploded on social media. Some fans said Clark was being targeted. Others said she was getting special treatment. And the league found itself in the middle of a firestorm. Now, here's what's important to understand. This debate is real. It's happening, and it's not going away. But here's what I want you to be careful about. A lot of what you see online about this is speculation. People claiming the league is rigged. People claiming referees are being told to protect one player. None of that has been proven. None of that is fact. What is fact is this. The league has acknowledged that the officiating around its biggest star is a topic of intense debate, and the league has made changes to the style of play that affect everyone. The WNBA has moved toward a faster, higher scoring, more perimeter-focused game, the same style that the NBA has been pushing for years. That's a real change. And it's a change that some of the league's most physical defenders don't like. Here's the tension in plain terms. Some veteran players built their careers on physical defense. They played a hard, tough brand of basketball. And now they feel like the league is moving away from that style. They feel like the game is being changed around them, and they're not happy about it. But here's the other side. The league's answer is that this is what the fans want. The casual viewers aren't watching for grinded-out defensive battles. They're watching for fast transitions and logo threes. They're watching for highlights, and the league is giving them exactly that. So who's right? Honestly, it depends on who you ask. And that's the thing about this whole situation. There's no simple answer. But there is one thing that's certain. The league is changing, and not everyone is going to be happy about it. Now, before I wrap this up, let me tell you what the man at the center of all of this actually said. Because his own words are the most revealing thing in this entire story. What Silver actually said. Adam Silver has been surprisingly open about all of this, and his comments have only added to the debate. At a major industry event, Silver was asked about Caitlin Clark and the controversy surrounding her, and his answer was striking. He said that Clark has become a, quote, political football in this country, unquote. Let me let that sink in. The commissioner of the NBA is saying that the league's biggest star has become a political issue. That's a huge statement. And he went further. He said that ultimately the issues around Caitlin Clark are not largely about officiating. In other words, Silver is saying that the debate around Clark goes far beyond basketball. It's about culture. It's about politics. It's about everything that's happening in the country right now. But here's the other side of what Silver has said. He's also defended the attention on Clark. He's said that having a target on her back is good for the sport and healthy for the WNBA. He's talked about how Clark is blowing up the internet and how wonderful it is to see. So Silver is playing both sides in a way. He's acknowledging the controversy, but he's also embracing it. Because from his perspective, all of this attention is good for business. Now, here's what I want you to take away from this. Adam Silver is not pretending the controversy doesn't exist. He's not hiding from it. He's acknowledging it, and he's using it, because in his world, attention is value. And right now, the WNBA has more attention than it has ever had. But that raises a really important question. What happens when the attention turns negative? What happens when the debate starts hurting the league instead of helping it? And that's the question nobody can answer yet. The Olympic question. Let me take you back to one of the most controversial moments in this entire saga. The Olympic question. When it came time to select the team for the 2024 Olympics, Caitlin Clark was not on the roster. Let me be clear about what happened. She was left off the Olympic team, and the reaction was immediate and massive. Fans were furious. Social media exploded. People couldn't understand how the biggest star in the league wasn't representing her country on the biggest stage in the world. Now, here's where I need to be really careful because there's a lot of misinformation about this. Some people claimed the league kept her home on purpose, to protect her from burnout. Some people claimed there was a conspiracy to control her. None of that has ever been proven. What we know for sure is that the selection committee made a decision, and that decision sparked one of the biggest debates in the history of the sport. Here's what the debate really comes down to. On one side, you have people who say the selection was a basketball decision. The team was built a certain way, and Clark didn't fit the plan. On the other side, you have people who say it's impossible to justify leaving out the most popular player in the league. And here's the thing. Both sides have a point. And the debate itself tells you everything you need to know about how much the sport has changed. A few years ago, nobody would have cared who made the Olympic team. Now, it's front page news because the sport has a star now. And when you have a star, every decision around that star becomes a story. The future, where this is all heading. So let's bring all of this together. Because the question everyone wants answered is simple. What happens next? Here's what I believe, based on everything we've covered. The WNBA is never going back to the way it was. The league has made its choice. It's going to be a big league. It's going to be a global league. It's going to be a league that competes with the NBA for attention, for talent, and for money. The media deal is locked in for more than a decade. The expansion is rolling out year after year. The new collective bargaining agreement has changed the financial reality for players forever. And the star who made all of this possible is still in the middle of her prime. But here's the part that should keep you watching. All of this growth comes with real risk. The league is expanding faster than it can manage. The players are dealing with more pressure than ever. The debate over officiating isn't going away. And the next generation of stars, the players who are coming into this new, bigger, richer league, they're going to have expectations that the current players never had. And that's the real story here. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark. It's about what comes after her, when the next big star enters the league. Will they get the same protection? Will they get the same promotion? Or was all of this a one-time experiment built specifically around one player? That's the question that's going to define the next decade of women's basketball, and nobody has the answer yet. Here's what I can tell you for sure. The WNBA is no longer trying to catch up. It's setting the pace. The decisions being made right now, the media deals, the expansion, the charter flights, the new contracts, these aren't temporary. These are the foundation of a league that's going to look completely different in 10 years. And whether you love the new direction or you miss the old days, one thing is certain. The world is watching. More people are watching women's basketball than ever before in history. And that's the only metric that really matters in the end. So here's my question for you. Do you think the league is growing too fast, or do you think this is exactly what women's basketball needed? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you made it this far, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay tuned, because the next chapter of this story is already being written. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss it.